Alright guys, these brakes actually, believe it or not, have 106,000 miles on them. Mostly highway miles, but I wanted to get them changed out sooner rather than later. You can see there's actually quite a bit of pad left, and these are the original factory pads. I'll show you what we're going to be upgrading them with. But for those of you not familiar with brake terms, this is the rotor. The round part's the rotor. The discs actually grab onto that rotor to slow the car down. You've got your brake pads. There's one here on the front. There's one in the back. There's retaining clips. These metal clips keep them on, keep them from vibrating and rattling. And then this is called your caliper. This assembly here is basically a big clamp, and it's hydraulically activated. You've got a hydraulic piston here. When you step on the brakes, your master cylinder forces hydraulic fluid down through your hose here, and it compresses this cylinder, which squeezes the pads together. Okay, so the first step is to remove the two bolts that hold the caliper on, and then we can access the pads. So those two bolts on this 2014 Ford Fusion are back here in the back. Here's the top one. You can see it has a cap on it, and then there's a bottom one right here, also has a cap on it. So you'll remove that cap. You can just use your thumbnail. If you don't have any thumbnails, you can probably use just a small screwdriver. But that's what the cap looks like. That just keeps dirt and debris and mud from getting in there. And pop that top cap off there, and you should be able to see the nut inside there. So let me go get a wrench and we'll take those off. We're ready to take those two nuts off that hold the caliper on. They just happen to be 7mm in size. You can use one of these three options. You can use something on a ratchet. Obviously that's not the right size. You can use a wrench set, or you can use a key set like this. In this case, we're going to use this 7mm. And I wanted to show you something before we get under the car. If you need additional leverage on your wrench, you can put a box end wrench on there and push it in any direction. That'll extend you out and get you a little bit more leverage. So whether you have to go in like that and use the wrench that way, or you can go in like that, you can use the wrench that way and get more leverage. So let's go under and take those two bolts out. Alright, we're ready to take our two bolts out. Just going to put the wrench in here, and I'm going to use my box end wrench for leverage. Alright, that wasn't too tight. Just going to loosen that one half a turn. I'm going to go to the top one, do the same thing. Okay. Alright, now we can screw those bolts out all the way. Okay. And you can slide them all the way out if you want, or you can just leave them in the sleeve. But that's what they look like there. I'm just going to leave them in the little rubber boot sleeve. That way they just stay in place. But you'll feel them when they come loose, and they'll kind of slide out a little bit. There we go, that one's loose. So just pull them out just enough so that the thread's clear. Alright, we've got the two nuts loose in the back. Now before we can take the caliper off, we have to take this spring off. You can use a screwdriver, or if you've got a pry bar, you can use the pry bar. Remember, safety is number 3 priority. So when you take this off, what I would do is cover it with your hand. That way, worst case scenario, it comes off and hits your hand and not your face. Hands are replaceable, faces are not. Good, there we go. Alright, so there's our spring. Make sure you hang onto that, that's important. Okay. Now, you should see that the caliper just slides right off. Alright, that's going to lean down. Now that, let's switch over here. Now as you can see, these brakes are actually in much better shape than I thought. But for the sake of the video, we're just going to change them out. And that way I don't have to worry about it probably for the rest of the life of the car. Again, this is probably 80% highway miles on this car, so if you're a city driver, obviously you're not going to look this good after 100, and you're probably going to have to change them out a lot sooner than that. But Some people use a strain relief like a coat hanger or a piece of wire to hang the caliper from. As long as you're not too rough on it, the hydraulic line will hold it. There's a strain relief there. But again, don't be too rough on it when you've got it out here. And be aware that if this gets damaged in any way, you're not going to have brakes and you're going to have brake fluid squirting everywhere. So protect this cable here. But anyway, here we go. Let's take these pads out. So what you'll see here is the pads should just pop out. The back one actually has a clip that clips inside that hydraulic cylinder there. Okay? So there's our back one, here's our front one. Take that out. Make sure everything's clean and neat. And the next step we're going to have to do is we're going to have to compress this cylinder so that our new pads, which are thicker, will fit over the top of the rotor. Okay, so this we have to push back in. There's a couple different ways to do that. Some people sell you fancy tools and whatnot for this. I'm going to show you how to do it with a simple C-clamp. Okay, before we compress those caliper cylinders, what we want to do is find your brake fluid reservoir. Just take the cap off. Okay, because when you compress it, you're going to build up pressure, and we want that pressure to be able to go somewhere. So here, it'll just release air out the top. Okay. So we have our reservoir cap off, and we got the C-clamp here. You're just going to put it in between the back and the front of the cylinder. You're just going to turn that C-clamp until that cylinder is fully compressed. You want to make sure you're somewhat centered. You don't want to push on one side more than the other, but you'll get a feel for it. If it starts getting really hard to turn, maybe you need to recenter your clamp. But you're just going to keep pushing it in. See, I'm going to recenter it a little bit. And what you're going to do is you're going to push that in until the front is kind of flush with that side there. And that's all she'll go. Okay, so that's fully compressed there. Now all we got to do is get our new brake pads out of the box and get them put in there. Here's our new brake pads. We're using Bendix ceramic pads. I found that this is a very good name brand. Obviously do your own research, find your own price point and quality that you want, but I really like Bendix. For the price, it's really hard to beat. You can get these right on Amazon. I think I paid roughly $35 for the set, so it's not bad at all. This is how they come. You can see that they have the same clips as the original. They might be a little bit better because they're all painted to match. So maybe on those ones, since the clips are painted, you won't have a rust issue like you have on these old ones. But just make sure everything matches up, and we'll go ahead and put these on. New pads. I just wanted to show you a couple of differences between the replacement pads and the OEMs. You can see that this one's worn about half of this. Okay, so that's still not bad. Obviously, in a real world situation, you would not have to replace those right now. You could wait probably several thousand miles before you had to replace these. But we're going to go ahead and do it now. The new Bendix ones, you can see here the cooling gap in the middle is much more narrow than the original equipment. I'm not sure why. If you guys know, can you tell me in the comment section? But you can see everything else is the same, except for on these ones they have a little tattler. And what that little tattler is, it's just a little metal tab, and it basically will make a squealing noise when it hits the rotor of the car, and it kind of tells you, hey, you need to change your brake pads now. So I'm not sure why Ford chose not to put them on the original equipment pads, but Bendix has the tattler on theirs. We've got our new pads here. I'm going to pop the back one in first, and that just kind of slides inside there, like so. That's going to clip in, and then the other new one, which is the front one, it's just going to kind of sit in there. Okay, that's the one that has the clip on it, so you'll see that the clip kind of holds it in place anyway. So back one's held in place. The front one, when you slide the caliper back over the rotor, you're going to want to just hold the front one in place. And you can see that just slides right over. Okay. go. Slide that on like that. Okay. The pad just fits right in those grooves there. And you can see the tattler there. So we'll come around to the back side. Okay, here we are in the back. And you're just gonna slide it around until those two bolts line up with their holes. So I'm just gonna get the wrench in there and start turning it. I believe I'm lined up now. Once you get the first one started, make sure you go to the other one and get that one started before you tighten them all the way down. Okay. Okay. You can use a torque wrench here if you want. Find the owner's manual, find the torque setting. Not really a torque guy. I've never had a bolt break or back out on me. Anyway, what I do is I just do hand tight and then about a quarter turn on that nut. Obviously don't go too tight. You don't want to snap that thing. We would probably be in a world of hurt if you snap that bolt off in there. But we'll go ahead and tighten the top one. Alright, so those are tight now. Now's the fun part, getting this clip back on here. So, what we're going to do is you can kind of see how the clip lines up there. Okay, and these outside tabs have to be on the back side of those. So those go in the two holes there, right? So what I do is do it like that, and then just take a screwdriver and pry that top one up and over. Okay? And that's all you got to do. Just make sure it's secure, it's not going to pop back off of there. And if you forget the alignment on that, since you haven't taken the other side apart, just to see how that lines up, you can always go look at the other side and make sure that your spring is lined up right. But that's it. Then we're going to put the tire back on. We're going to go to the other side and do the exact same procedure, and then we're done. Then we get to go test them. Do remember though, it is normal to get a little bit of brake smell, like hot brake smell, when you put the brand new pads on there, because sometimes at the factory they put a little bit of glaze protection coating on the front side of that pad. So sometimes that has to wear off before your brakes work optimally, and you might smell a little bit of burning, but you're fine. Okay. Don't forget to put your caps back on. They just pop in there. This cap. When you're done, don't forget to check the level of the brake fluid in your reservoir. I'm not checking mine now because I'm not on a level surface, but I'm going to drive the car down to the street so that it's completely level. My driveway is a little bit steep, but I'm going to park it on a level surface, and then I'm going to check and make sure that I'm halfway between that min and max level on there. If I do need to top it off, remember you can only use DOT4 brake fluid. A lot of you guys, if you've had, because you don't use much brake fluid, so a lot of times you'll have an old jar sitting around in the garage forever and ever. Most likely that's DOT3, so pay attention. This is DOT4. I just realized the bottle that I have is DOT3 for an older car, so I'm going to have to go buy some DOT4 if I do need to top this up. But again, make sure you put this on before you try to drive anywhere. Just make sure, put that on tight. And then again, when the first time you're on a level surface, go ahead and check that level, make sure you're good.